So, welcome everyone. We're so happy to see you here on our second Saturnalia knit along. And there's always, fewer people. Usually, the first knit along, everybody kind of gets their questions answered, and then we don't hear from them again. The second one, um, people kind of drop off. But I would love for you to show me where you are in your sweater. I'll start. Um, and I'll
Wow.
admit, I haven't done much lately. It's been about a week since I've touched it because I keep getting these other things to do. But I just love how it's fitting. I I'm into the rhythm of the different size stripes, and yeah, I'm in love with the sweater. I really want to wear this one. So I'm looking
Yeah.
forward to finishing it. So how about you, Karen? What's
I
going
don't know if
on?
you can, can you see?
Yeah, let
Hold on up
me
a little more.
let me spotlight it. You can hold it a little
Um,
higher up. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay.
Are
Yeah,
you
I'm
yeah.
on
doing the
number
same colors as,
the
are you
fourth
Midnight
doing the
yellow
same
Sea.
one.
colors?
Yeah, the Midnight Sea and the is it switchgrass? The color of the prairie. I think it's switchgrass. Yeah, it's beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful.
Yeah.
So
So I'm
wonderful. How are things?
I'm
Ellen, how about you? Where are you?
I'm not as far along as I should be. So I'm
Oh,
here.
okay. Very
And I
good.
have
Very good.
Loon Lake and Yarrow, and I should have had at least another several inches. I have never had to frog so much knitting. I had gotten to the point where I was into the second white stripe. And I said, I have been forgetting to do the increases. I've just been knitting and knitting and knitting.
Oh no.
So
I've done that.
and then to get it back to a place where I knew I had the right number of stitches, I had to go all the way back to the ribbing. And I thought, I could have just
Oh,
torn it out and started over with less time than it took me with what I was doing. So I started again, and I was a little bit further than this when I realized that somewhere I had this weird place. I must have dropped some stitches, and I did something really stupid in picking them up where I had yarns crossing, and I'm like, what kind of a mess did I make there? So I had to go back. I had a I was on row 6 of this second um stripe of the blue, and I had to go all the way back to the white to get it started. And then I had to do the thing of going around and around and picking up the stitches and saying, okay, there's a place where I've been increasing. So put a marker and count the right number of
oh
stitches. If I'm
man.
missing one,
Mm.
okay, I have to figure out how to make one when it's in a previous row and do it with a crochet hook.
Oh wow.
So
Yeah, much more complicated than the pattern really is.
exactly. But I'm doing it absolutely right now. And I hope I'm going to continue it. And I was having trouble with the going back and forth from, you know, what do I do? Where do I make one right or I make one left? And what row am I on? So I've taken this stitch pattern thing and I'm making notes on it. I put up here that because of the size I'm doing, I need to do 32 increases, which takes me to row 64. And what I make one right is, and then it goes after the marker, and that before the marker is to make one left. And all down here, I'm putting what numbers of stitches I should have so that I can keep track as I go. So far, it's perfect.
Oh wow. Okay, well that's mine's not perfect. I have at least
Well,
one mistake, but it's gonna have
it's
to
not
be there.
it's not perfect, but it looks like it's perfect.
Good.
That's all.
That's all that
Yeah.
matters.
And
How
Mine's
about
not perfect.
I am usually a better knitter than this, so I don't know what's been going on. Well, I do have an idea of what's going on. So
we
it's
get
just something I
distracted
have.
off in our heads and we just kind of start going on. At least I do. In my head, I start
Oh,
thinking and going, and then my hands go. Anyway, Karen, what about
Yeah.
you?
I'm okay. I did have to do some frogging because I was making one left first, where the instructions weren't that clear on the knitting pattern, and I went to the yarn sharp and we figured it out. Or
Oh, okay.
oh,
Yeah,
I
she
saw your
figured.
comment on Facebook, I think, about that,
yeah.
Yeah, I
didn't I?
did.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I I honestly couldn't understand because I followed the pattern exactly as it's written and it turned out fine. So I'm glad you figured it out because I couldn't understand where you were having problems, you know.
Because
So, but that's
it
okay.
had after your original you had your original marker, and then you should have been making one right, but it said to make one left.
Well, I think
Um,
either one will work. It's just going to look a little different
it's going to look a
because it's
lot.
going to
Yeah,
slant the stitches in a different direction.
yeah. But usually you do make it right and then make it left.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And I should have
Yeah,
known that because I've made other sweaters, but
right,
it's
right.
been a while since I've done
Well,
a raglan.
I'm so happy that you have it and it's perfect now and it makes sense to you and you can just move on to knitting your beautiful sweater. I love your colors.
Yeah, I like them too. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
It,
I did have a place in the yellow where it was the yarn was knotted. I had to take the, yarn. I had to cut it.
oh, really?
Well,
You
you
mean
always
it came out of
the
the skein that
skein.
way?
Yeah.
Oh,
So
okay.
you
Oh,
always cut
I've
it. But
never.
what I've been told, you don't leave a knot because it can always come out.
Oh, yeah, no, you
Yeah.
don't want to
So
leave
I
a
have
knot.
some, and then my cats got into the black yarn, and uh, it took me a couple of hours, took me a whole day to straighten that out and get the knots out, and they also bit it. So I have some ends that I'm going to have to work in.
Well, it should be pretty easy, with something this small, it should be pretty easy to work them in and
Yeah.
keep them tight, keep them
Right.
hidden.
Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. Usually I like to work on untangling knots and even very tiny knots in a yarn. I can often get them undone, but every once in a while when I have caked a skein of yarn instead of balling it, and I like to pull from the center, sometimes there's something weird that's happened in the caking that it just comes out a big clump in a
Mhm.
tangled
Hmm.
mess. And then in trying to fix that, another big tangled mess comes out. And then I think like, why do I why do I wind the yarn instead of just balling it?
Well, you know
What
what
made me
I
think I wanted to knit?
you know what I do sometimes to help avoid that. I won't say that it always avoids it, but I will cake it and then I will take that cake that I just created and I will run it again. And it's
Going in the
just,
other direction.
yeah, yeah,
And
it just,
I've known people to say that makes a fluffier, less tight ball too, so you don't lose the
and
spring.
it pulls nicer. I mean, especially always do that if you're going to ball it and then not use it for a while. That you need to do so that you're not stretching the yarn and keeping it in that. Because a lot of times when I cake with, it kind of gets tight, and it starts winding a little more tightly than I wish. So yeah, if you're going to leave your yarn for a period of time in a ball, go ahead and do it twice. But I do it anyway just because I like the feeling of pulling from a nice fluffy ball rather than pulling from a ball that's kind of,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And I always I don't just run the ball through the yarn winder, but I hold it too to help control the
Yeah.
tension.
Yeah, that
I never had a ball winder until a yarn winder until recently, maybe 2 years ago. And I had visited a friend's weaving studio, and she showed me. Well, she had invited me to come and bring a whole bunch of yarn to wind it. And I said, oh, no, I have to get one of those. But she showed me some of the tricks she uses because she has since moved and downsized a lot, but she had a gorgeous studio with like 6 or 8 looms and
mm.
shelves and shelves full of yarn. And she taught classes and stuff like that. But
Oh, what fun.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So
That's fantastic.
She keeps her yarn wound for a long time.
So she wants it fluffy, yeah. So are there any questions? Have you looked farther ahead? I know this is our last one, but you're both in the group, so keep asking away if you run into anything else.
Well,
Um,
I have one question.
mhm,
When you do the jogless stripe technique, which I
mhm.
love, but your stripe where you're um so like I ran into this when I changed from at the very beginning, it was 2 rows of knitting the white, 1 row of knitting the blue, then it was purling the blue. But the purling was where I was supposed to be picking up the white
Yeah.
stitch.
Okay. So I just recently figured this out. I'm glad I had forgotten about that. I was going to say something. I just recently figured this out. So so first of all, let me show you. Let me show you and everyone else more about what we're talking about here on the camera. Um, and let's see if I can make this clear. So what Ellen was talking about is right here. When you when you do it on the purl, it creates this funny area, and it doesn't really quite work when you do the lift one at the end or at the beginning of the row. It kind of leaves a funny thing. So on these last two, what I have done is instead of purling that first stitch that you're supposed to purl, knit it.
That's what I did because I didn't like the way it
Yeah,
looked.
just
Yeah.
knit it. You can't see that there's one purl missing there. That's going to be seen less than this is going to be seen.
Yep. Well, I'm glad to know I figured that out correctly.
You figured it out correctly. And I keep saying that I'm going to get a tutorial up on how to how to I get switched back here. I keep saying I'm going to get a tutorial up on how to do this jog. I want to show it, or do the eliminating the jog. I want to actually show it. Um, so anybody watching the video, look on the YouTube channel. Um, Maybe even this afternoon, I will get that shot. Oh, I'm hoping really soon, so that you can find how to do that lift on the first stitch of the next row to
Yeah, and you
eliminate
had
the
given us
jog.
a link last time, and I know I had put a question out on the Facebook group saying, I can't find the link. Where is it? And then I thought, wait a minute, I bet I know where it is. So I have had a lot of times when I have found patterns that I didn't think were written quite as well as I would like, but I figured out what they should be. So I have, and I love working on the computer. I love working in Excel. So I have an Excel folder, not folder, but workbook that's called knitting augmentation. And every time I make a change to a pattern, I record it in there so that I can just print it and follow that. And so I also have hints and tips in there for things, and I had put the link in there. So I went back and added that to the Facebook question that I wrote and said, oops, I found it. Here's the link that was somebody else's tutorial, but it worked and taught me
Yeah,
what to
I
do.
think it's in.
But I
I think
mentioned
it's
the workbook just so that I thought other people might not have thought of having a place where they record things about changes that they've made to patterns. And you make notes sometimes all over a pattern, but when I buy a pattern, I also put that in a file on my computer so that I have a clean copy next time. But then you lose all your notes. So I know to go look in my workbook to see if I've got changes for a pattern. I try to be organized about this stuff, but I don't always succeed.
yeah. Okay. Like I mentioned, I in the last thing, I put the links on the YouTube replay. So the links to
Uh,
the jogless join and the links for how to swatch in the round were the two things we spoke about in the session the first time in our first knit along. And I went ahead and I put those links that we talked about and I showed you right attached to the description in the YouTube channel of
Are
the
we going
replay.
to do that at the beginning of a row and at the end? I mean, at the end of the color. I mean, if you're going from yellow to blue.
No, it's at the no, it's at the end. You attach
Right.
it,
Mm-hmm.
you go around, and then when you go to join that new color to
Okay.
the that's
Yeah.
when you do that little technique. And then you can knit in that same color, that same color, that same color. You change colors, you knit one around with a new color,
Okay.
and then it's when you come around that you do it.
Sure. That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It
And
took me a while to figure that too, because none of the tutorials that I looked at really mentioned that, and so I got confused. Wait a second, do I do it now? And
right.
no,
Right.
you do it when you go to meet that new
Mm-hmm.
color finally.
Okay. That makes more
Mhm.
sense. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay. I
I
don't know
think
if
it's a yeah, yeah.
I mean, it looks all right what I have here, so I don't.
You know, I have all kinds of joints because I was trying different things and whatnot.
Mhm.
I have all kinds on here, and you know what? No one is going to notice, and
Right.
I'm perfectly happy.
Now, one thing am doing is I have really long needles, you know, the
Cables.
cables, um, so I can try it on.
Yeah.
And then if it's too wide, I guess after the arms, I can
You can
decrease
shape it.
some stitches at the arm. Does that
Yeah,
make sense?
absolutely.
Okay.
What often what I do, well, I had it really long. I had what I did when I was up here on the yoke. I mean, this is not a have to, but when you need longer cables when you're still up here and you're including the
Yeah.
shoulders and everything. And so I had a short cable attached with with one of the join things on my interchangeable needle sets, that they have
Yeah.
little joins. And I
Right.
had another cable attached. And then when I went down to this, just the
Hmm.
body, then I just took that extra one out. I mean,
Yeah.
you can do it however you want. That's not a
Hmm. Yeah.
but that works for me. And mine isn't, I can't pull mine out 100%. I think maybe if I put caps on mine, but if I wanted to, I could just attach another little piece in there quickly and try it
Yeah.
on.
I just wanted to be able to try it on to make sure it was going to fit and
Yeah.
and then to make any adjustments.
Yeah. Yeah. Very good. Very good. Very good. I think it's so fun and I love the weight of the sweater, of course, particularly for where I live and maybe for where you live as well, Karen.
Hmm.
The weight of it is going to be nice because
Yeah.
often I wear some kind of sweater for most of the year. I can put a light sweater on,
Hmm.
push up the sleeves, and be comfortable. So this weight really works for me.
Yeah. It's a good weight and it's very soft.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
love the way it feels. I'm looking forward to wearing it.
Yeah.
me as well. I wish I had a little elf to come finish mine because I'm off to knitting the next thing, and I never have a chance to spend my time.
I like the sweater you have on.
Oh, thank you. This is a purchase. It's yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah. But thank
Are you
you.
allowed to do that?
I have cabinets here in my little studio just filled with partially finished things because now I've got to start knitting my next knit along object, so that I can help, and teach that. And so I'm just always on to the next thing and I often don't have a chance to finish. I need to just maybe hire somebody to come in and finish my projects for me. Oh gosh.
Maybe you
But
should
anyway,
have a knit along about unfinished projects and, and then you could work on some of yours.
right. So that's what I did. and that's a good thing to mention. I have added, and we'll see if everyone likes it and see if it's if it's, you know, people join. But I have set up, when's the first one? Let me see when I scheduled the first one. And it's just like a knitting open house or a knitting circle where everybody can bring whatever they're knitting if they have a question, and I can, you know, we can all as a community try to answer it, or I can try to, you know, put my 2 cents in. And I think the first one, it's in the group. I think it's pinned to the top of the group. Uh, where is the first one? Oh, I think it's the 1st of March, March 1. I've set that. So just be watching in the group, and I believe it's pinned. Did I put a link in there? Yeah, I put a link in there as well. So it's pinned to the
Great.
top of the Facebook group. There's a link, and it's March 1. And we'll see if it's something people enjoy. So even if you have a question on your Saturnalia, if you're still knitting it and you have a question, want to bring it, that's great. So I'm looking through the pattern. Should we divide, do the body, the hem and the sleeves? I mean, everything seems pretty straightforward.
There's no
My challenge,
surprises.
I don't think so. Shaping
Okay.
the sleeve, just knit one, knit two together, slip, slip, knit. You know, knit two together on one side, slip, slip, knit on the other to do your decreases. Just remembering the decrease round. The thing that I have a hard time remembering, and this is nothing technical, is just I forget to put that purl row in, and I've had to take out a couple times because I've forgotten to purl. I just get stuck on stockinette, and I forget.
Yeah, that's how one of the things I love. My sister gave me my first one, and she gave one to my mother who didn't like it. So I had two, but I realized I have too many unfinished projects. So I like these chain counters. And so I've put it just before the beginning of a round so that I look at the beginning of the round. And for this part, I know that I do the increases on the odd numbered rows. And so if I'm moving it to a 4, I don't increase. If I move it to a 5, I increase.
That alerts you.
Yes. And so it's just about right now, it's about 10 stitches before the start of a row. Of course, every time I increase, it moves, right?
I do my
But
increases on the even rows.
because
Okay.
that's not, well, I'm counting from where this says that rounds 1 through 5,
Hmm.
you knit. And so I do my increase on the first one because you were,
Yeah.
anyway, that's just the way I started it.
Yeah,
Hmm.
and it's fine. Either way, it's perfectly fine. Yeah.
But I do love the way this yarn feels.
Yeah, it feels lovely. In fact, I've sold out. I've put in another order. They're the kits are pretty much sold out right now.
Yeah. And then your next one, um, was, is this your next knit along? Something that's made with the Metallica?
Metallico, yeah.
Yeah, because I did that Lexington cowl with that. Yeah, that's right. That was it.
Yeah.
Um,
It's beautiful, and the yarn is across the room there, but I can show you. And here's an example of here's what the Metallico looks like.
it's just slightly shimmery.
Yeah, it is.
Hmm.
Slightly shimmery. Oh God, it feels so amazing. And I made one into a ball, and this ball I ran twice. It's kind of fallen off, and whoops, I wrapped the wrong end crazy, so it looks a little weird here. What am I doing? Huh, that's interesting. Okay, well, I got a weird thing going on, but it'll be fine. Anyway, I wrapped this ball twice.
Hmm.
It's very squishy because I just, I don't know. I'm just weird
Well,
that way.
that yarn tends to stick if it stays together for a long time. So it's probably good to do that and have it nice and loose.
Yeah, I haven't noticed this one sticking. This certainly does. The prairie,
Mhm.
you
Yeah.
know, it wants to stick, especially when you're
Oh,
trying
yeah.
to take it out,
So
because
all
it's
those
got
little
all
fuzzy bits.
yeah, all those little fuzzy bits. But anyway, Metallico is gorgeous, and um, yeah, that's the next one, and it'll be a very simple knit, except for
The
I
lace
shouldn't
edge.
say except for that lace edge, and
Hmm.
that'll be fun because it's both written and charted. So if you don't like charts, um, it's all written out in the stitch pattern. So or it's charted if you do like charts. And if you want to not seam here, it's knit in a long rectangle, and then you fold it in half, and then you seam across one of the tops here so that it creates a hole here. So it's open on the end and it's open at the top. It's open at the top here. You got a little seam here, and then it's open at the ends, which are over here. Oops, that's not wanting to. Anyway,
Are you doing a lot of short rows in that?
no, no short
No.
rows. No
Oh,
short rows. It's just one
uh-huh.
straight
Oh,
rectangle.
oh.
Yeah, one straight rectangle, and then you take how do I describe it? Do I have a like um
So you could use it as a shawl if you didn't want to
oh
seam it.
yeah, that's what I'm getting at. If you don't let me pull out a piece of paper. That one. I'll be able to do it. So you knit a long rectangle like this, and then you fold it in half when you're done. Obviously, it's longer than this, and you just seam from here to here. And
Hmm.
so you can put your head through this hole here and your arms out here. So it's totally flat, and then just the little seam here. Now, if you don't want to seam it, you can just have a long shawl and just, you know, use it like that.
Hmm.
Or you can even buy another skein or so of yarn and make it even longer to where you could, you know, because it's made to be seamed, it's not long enough to really wrap around a lot of times. You know what I mean? So if you didn't want to seam it, anyway, I'm getting a little too complicated, but you get the idea.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I think if you didn't want to seam it, you could just make it a little longer because what is the length? The length is 60 inches. So 60 inches is, I think this whole thing is 60 inches. So, if I wrapped it around, I couldn't do a whole lot of throwing it
Hmm.
over my
Yeah.
shoulder.
Yeah.
I could put it here and throw over. I can make it a shorter like that and throw it over. But if I really wanted to use it that way, I think I would add another skein of yarn and make it a little bit longer. But I really like the lace. It's a unique, it almost looks like a cable-y lace pattern. It's not
Yeah.
cable, but it looks like a cable. It's just yarn overs and slip knits, very simple. No increases, no decreases, nothing like that. Just
Hmm.
yeah, but I know I'm going to wear this one a lot if I get it finished. Oh gosh.
Yeah.
Well, if you don't have any more questions, is everybody ready to call it a day?
Yeah.
We're ending a little early, or do you want to continue knitting together? I can pick mine up and knit with you. You want to do that?
Yeah, let's do that in case anybody
Okay.
runs into any questions for a little while.
That sounds good.
That way we're giving you an opportunity to do some knitting.
There.
Yeah.
Now that's because you know that as soon as I go off, I'm going to be off to doing something else. soon as I say goodbye. Did we talk about Knit Companion? I think maybe we talked about it on the last week on the Frosty North, but I've been using Knit Companion and just loving it.
What is it?
Oh, it's
I don't
this,
remember.
I don't
yeah,
either.
we might not have talked about it on it's I use it on my iPad and it opens up. Let's see. Let me make this bigger.
Hmm.
Oh no, here we go. Hold it next to my face, maybe it'll. And you can you can upload the patterns through Ravelry or through uh just on your iPad. You can upload the patterns, and then it has lines that you can keep track of, rows, and then here's another line that you can keep track on the cable part. Let's see, I was knitting the Fia with a cable, and it will create an extra cable page. It will turn your cable chart into a separate page, and then you can put the yellow line, bring the yellow, well, I can't do it not looking at it, but move the yellow line up as you move through the cable pattern. And just down here, oops. Here, I know a better way of showing you. Switch camera. Here, this will work better. Can you see
Ah,
that now?
Oh,
yeah.
Now, how do I get rid of this thing? I'm doing weird things. Knit Companion. There we go. So, I don't know what happened to my yellow line. I had a yellow line up here when I was doing it. I think you hit knit and it tells you to be able to knit. You can get rid of that part and um just have the chart. You can look at every page. You can make it bigger if you can't see very well. You know exactly where you are in the pattern. You can write on the pattern. You can make notes. Um, and then what I really like over here is like, especially with the Saturnalia, I've been, I'm not right now, but you can keep track of your rows for each section of things that you're doing for each, like say a section says knit 37 and then the next one says knit 5 and then the next section is you can keep track of each each section of the pattern which row you're on over here. Anyway,
How do
I
you
know
do that?
you just hit it. I get done with the
Okay.
row and I just touch it and it moves up one number.
Okay.
Just touch it and it moves up a number.
you would need an iPad for it though.
No, well, you can I think you can use it on your phone, but that's kind of small, or you can use
Yeah.
it on your desktop, but it just makes it so much easier because I
Mm.
can take this, move it from room to room and wherever I'm
Right.
knitting.
Yeah.
Yeah. And my pattern, I lost my kitty last year, but the end of last year, but my kitty was always walking on my patterns, my paper patterns, and messing them up.
Yeah.
And sometimes she'd, not very often, but sometimes she'd even chew them, but mostly she would just walk on them because she wanted to sleep on them. And this took care of that. I always had a clean pattern. Also, I know where it's at and it interfaces beautifully with Ravelry. So
Hmm.
Hmm.
I am by no
Yeah,
means an expert on it at all. But what I have used it for, I love.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think I'm probably with Karen. It sounds like neither of us uses an iPad, but it does look like an interesting,
Right.
interesting thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think there are even classes that people teach on how to use it to its fullest
Wow.
because I think it's so I know I'm just using it in a very basic way right now, but it's good enough for me. It's really helping my
Mm.
making my life better, easier, keeping track. Does any either of you ladies have anything fun planned for the weekend other
Not
than
really.
knitting?
Going to the movies.
Oh,
You're
great.
going
What are
to the
you gonna
movies?
Yeah.
what are you going to watch?
Oh, I don't know. I can't remember the name. It was a Brazilian. It's nominated for the Academy Awards.
Oh,
Um,
Emilia Perez?
no, I saw that on TV actually.
Did you like it?
Yeah, it was different.
I haven't watched it yet. I want to watch it.
It wasn't like what I thought it would be. So yeah, I enjoyed it.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. I think we're just going to have a quiet day tomorrow. We're supposed to have weather that includes what's called a wintry mix, where it's snow, rain, freezing rain, sleet. And so our church has even been canceled for tomorrow. So
Oh,
because they say it's not really safe for people to
Hmm.
be out driving or walking to get
Where are
there.
you in
wow.
Massachusetts?
We're in Falmouth on Cape Cod.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I lived in Situate. My brother's still in Situate.
Okay.
Well, I have a friend in Boston. I need to check in with her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That sounds, she's bi-coastal, but she lives alone when she is alone when she is in Boston, and I need to check
Yeah.
and make sure she's okay.
Yeah. Further north, it's going to be more snow. But of course, Boston is also near the water, so it gets a little bit warmer. So they could also be doing a wintry mix.
It's when it kind of melts and then freezes. That's kind of, isn't that the worst? Or maybe
Well,
not.
the worst is when it's freezing as it hits the ground.
Oh,
That's the stuff
Hmm.
that's the most dangerous for driving.
hmm.
Yeah. I once totaled a brand new car in weather like that.
Yeah.
So I just
Wow.
don't go out when it's freezing on the ground.
Yeah.
Well, that's what we got several weeks ago. And we couldn't go anywhere for 4 days because there are no snow plows or they don't have the salt to put on the roads here.
Oh. So you get snow that far south, in South
Oh,
Carolina.
usually not. It's been some years.
Huh. Well, they got snow even in Houston or something this year, didn't they? I mean,
I think
it
so,
was like
yeah.
really far south.
Didn't they get some snow in Florida recently? It was like the first time in decades.
Probably this last storm, yeah.
Yeah.
I think so.
And we've not gotten more than a couple of inches here on the Cape, but we're right near the water. So the
Yeah,
water has a tempering effect.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I'll bet it can get kind of cold blowing
Oh,
in off the
yes.
water off the Atlantic.
And windy,
Yeah,
cold and
yeah.
windy. And we have very interesting weather at times. And we have a room at the back of our house, which it faces south. So it gets really warm on a sunny day, but it's all glass. Um, so it's where I grow a lot of plants. And when it overlooks a marina, so when the weather is really interesting, you can see the weather in the lights from the marina. And you can see the snow coming down and blowing around. You can see the rain blowing
Oh,
around. You can see trees blowing around. And sometimes you can just see if there's moisture in the air, just wind makes a pattern of the moisture in the air.
wow.
It's
Hmm.
fun to sit and watch it.
Interesting. Yeah. It's beautiful. We went out to the pier last night. Our pier here has, right near fairly near where I live, it has a little taco stand on it. And we went out last night and had a taco on the pier. And when we got there, it was quite windy. And, I mean, it's not cold, but it's cold enough that you want a good jacket on, or at least I do, since I'm a little bit of a wuss.
Yeah. When I was about 13, my father was working for Raytheon and he got sent out to do some work in Santa Barbara. And so he was away from home a lot. And that year at Thanksgiving, rather than paying to send him home, Raytheon paid for us to go to California. So we spent time visiting some friends of my parents in San Jose. And we spent time staying at the motel where my father had stayed in Santa Barbara. It was the first place in my life I ever ate a taco, was at a taco stand in Santa Barbara.
Oh,
Mm.
fun.
And we went to the botanical garden there.
Yeah. The one up kind of in Montecito, that one? Or
It's somewhere near Santa Barbara. That's all I know. I have a picture of the three of us kids from there.
I think there is one up kind of around Montecito. Montecito. I've actually never been. You have to make appointment and whatnot
Oh,
to,
Mm.
you can't just show up. I think you have to reserve your ticket.
back then I think you could just walk in.
Yeah, it's probably they don't want it overrun. It would probably mess
Are you
things
far
up.
from Montecito?
Yeah, no, just like 20 minutes.
Oh, then you're near Prince Harry? Is that
Yeah,
where?
yeah.
Well, you run into them all the time at the grocery store, I'm sure, right? You're on a first
all,
name
all the
basis.
time. I'm quite certain he has never stopped in Ventura on his way to LA. Uh,
I bet he doesn't go to the grocery store either.
and I'm sure he doesn't go to the grocery store. Yeah. Oh. Ventura is, Santa Barbara is a lot more posh. Ventura is just as beautiful, in my opinion. I adore it here, but it's not, as posh. But we're just down the highway, freeway. We're on the north end of town, just beside the little highway that goes up to Ojai. You've probably heard of Ojai.
Yeah.
So we're quite close to a lot of lovely places to go. In fact, in a couple weeks, to a couple 3 weeks, we're going to go out to the desert to Indian Wells to the tennis tournament out there.
Oh,
Hmm.
Spend a week. I'm kind of looking forward to that, getting away a little bit.
I think I have one row left to get back to where I was before I frogged this morning.
Oh, it was just this morning that you frogged.
Well, I
Wow.
did this morning. I also did it 2 days ago. So
Oh,
twice because of two different things. This time, so far, I don't have any mistakes that require doing that.
Well, I've had to cheat a little bit, sometimes adding an extra stitch or something.
yeah.
Yeah, but that's different than having something where think I had drop stitches, and when I picked things up, I got
Yeah.
things totally. I had lines of the wrong color going across, and I was like, "What on earth is that? How did I do that even?" If you can't figure out how you did it, you can't figure out how to undo it. And
Right.
everything was just a tangled mess when I tried to frog back a few rows. I was like, no, I got to go back further. And now I don't know what row I'm on, so I don't know how many stitches I should have.
Have either of you ever knitted until maybe 10 or 11 at night and then woke up the next day and said, "What was I thinking?" and had to take it all out?
Happens all
Yes,
the time. Yep.
yeah, that was probably what happened with this. I was probably knitting while watching television and was tired. And
Yeah.
I like to knit while watching television, but
Yeah, me
um,
too.
yeah, maybe there
Yeah.
was just something really exciting happening. We've been watching The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
and we never have watched it. And I don't know why we haven't watched it more recent, watched it before this, because a friend of ours had a bit part in it. And
Oh, really?
yeah, she was in two different seasons, small parts in just one episode each.
Anything
I
that
think
that we would remember?
um I doubt it, but I think the second episode she's in was in season 4, so we're going to be seeing her soon. And she was a Steiner singer in that. So whatever.
Oh, yeah, that's Steiner's. Yeah, one of the. Well, fun, fun, fun.
But in the first one, she was just a member of the audience at Steiner when they were doing the welcoming thing,
I don't remember
and
that.
singing the Steiner song. And it was just this great big thing when everybody arrived. They had this big gathering,
Uh-huh.
and she was in that. She was one of the extras. But the second one, she's actually a singer, and she has a fantastic voice. So I
Oh,
think
how
she might
fun.
actually be singing. But
How fun. Yeah,
I'll
I could
send you an
watch that
email if it.
series.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's really fun. I don't know why it took us so long.
Yeah, I watched it when, as it came out, but I feel like enough time has passed that I'd probably enjoy watching it again.
Yeah. And I think sometimes we didn't used to watch much television. Um, but now that we're both retired, we do. In the last, well, like what, about 3 or 4 years before my husband retired, I would be here all the time, and he would be where we used to live during the week, which is about 2 hours away. So he had an apartment, and he would come down on weekends. When we only saw each other on weekends, we weren't going to waste time watching television. When we're together
Mm-hmm.
24/7, we run out of stuff to talk about. We watch television once in a while.
I love television. You know,
If it's good stuff.
Yeah, and good
Yeah,
is subjective. So
yep,
everybody, I have to remember that everybody has different tastes. So,
yep.
Yeah.
and sometimes I'll start to watch something and I'll go, I don't really like that or whatever, and then I'll try again. Even 6 months, a year later, and it's like, oh, I kind of like that now. So I don't know.
Yeah. I get really disappointed if I'm looking for something. This usually happens on Netflix, and I'll say, okay, that looks like a good storyline. I'll watch that. And if it's foreign language with subtitles, that doesn't
Oh,
work if you're knitting.
that's hard with knitting, but oh, I just love foreign language, with subtitles. I do love watching it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is tough knitting. I think sometimes that's when I get into trouble is I'm looking up and down to read and yeah.
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 Yeah. The one thing we'll watch with foreign titles, foreign language and subtitles is French television or French movies because
Yeah.
we are trying to improve our French.
Oh, there you go.
I get it MHZ streaming, and they're all foreign language.
Now, what's MHZ?
It just has European television, but it's mainly
Oh,
either drama or mysteries or that kind of thing. But
uh-huh. Oh, what
so they're
fun.
in Scandinavian languages or Italian, French, Spanish.
Oh,
Yeah.
I would love
There's
that.
a
MH,
lot of
I'm
good
gonna write
Yeah.
that down.
there's a lot of good stuff coming out of Scandinavia. I've watched a bunch of them where it's been dubbed. And
Yeah.
it's kind of funny because sometimes I'll recognize a voice and say, oh, that guy was one of the dub actors on the previous thing I watched.
Oh, you basically, yeah.
Yeah.
I have a problem with the whole dubbing situation. It
Yeah.
just ruins it for me.
Hmm.
It just doesn't look right. The whole thing doesn't fit. I don't know. It just many times
Yeah,
we
I
sit
agree.
down to watch it and um yeah,
Sometimes it's
we'll say
done
we
better
can't
than
do
it is on other
that.
times.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true. Sometimes it is, but boy, it seems like more often than not we can't do it.
Yeah.
There was one Scandinavian one. It's a old one. What's it called? It's a sweet little one. Something about the seaside. See, oh, hmm, Seaside Hotel.
Huh.
Hmm.
I didn't know that
Oh,
one.
it's I guess it's Denmark. Not
Okay.
it's
Mm.
Denmark. And there's 8 seasons. No, oh, there's 10. Oh, well, then I've got more to watch. I didn't realize it was still going.
All right.
Yeah, Seaside Hotel is just kind of slow moving and all sorts of kind of crazy dramas. I don't know. I like hearing the voices. I love hearing a foreign language on my ears, whether,
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
just love hearing if this is Danish or Italian or French. I just love listening to it. Well, we had some lovely rain here this week, and we're getting more next week. So that's really good because boy, had we been dry before that.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
you've had years of drought in California, at
We
least up in the
did.
Davis area.
Yeah, it got pretty serious. And then finally, the last 2 years, then we've had a nice amount of rain and the reservoir's topped up, the lake is topped up and whatnot. But now this year again was really dry. And so we're not going to set any records, but at least we're getting a little bit. We have those, what they call atmospheric rivers, which I have no idea really what those are, but they bring a
Yeah.
lot of rain.
Hmm.
I have a question about the knitting that is
Yes,
just
yeah.
like, is there some way to make something easier? When you're doing the make ones, I'm fine with doing the make one left. I find it very easy to get my needle under there to knit the stitch. But when I'm doing the make one right, I find it really hard to get my needle sometimes under the yarn
Hmm.
to make the stitch.
Is it the one where you're knitting in the front of the needle?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll show you what I do. I don't know if this is helpful to you, but I will show you what I do because I
Yeah. Because
agree.
I just sometimes I find the yarn is tight and it's hard to figure out how to get under there.
It's very hard. So 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 if I go to make one right, I go through the
Yep.
back of the bar. Let's see, wait, am I in the middle here? Okay. So what I do is I just do a little tug here with my needle and put my finger there and create a bit of a loose loop here. Because
Yeah.
as long as it's like this, well,
It's hard. Yeah.
I did get it under, but as long as you're pulling on this back here, but I get my finger in the back so that I can give myself some slack in here. And sometimes it means that I just do that with my needle.
Okay. You just have to try a couple times to do it.
Yeah, I just give
Yeah.
myself, I hold my finger at the back so that I've given myself a little slack here at the front.
Hmm.
Anyway, I mean, it's not magic, but
Yeah. Yeah. So it's just never going to be as easy as the other one.
no.
With the other one, I find I can just sort of put my needle in at the front and slide it over the top of the other needle.
Yeah, exactly.
And
I do
usually it
that.
ends up with both of the needles exactly where they want to be. And if not, I just try again and it's easy. But that one, to make one right, it's like, oh, one of the, do I really have to keep doing those? It would look weird if I did all make one lefts.
Yeah. See, and now I just started to do what I have found myself doing so many times, and it's caused me um, frogging grief, and that is I'm on a purl row, and then I stopped and I did something else, and then I came back and I just started knitting again.
Oh, I've done that. Yeah, but it's
Yeah.
one thing if you only have to take out like 6 or 10
Oh,
stitches or
but I've done
something.
a whole half a row. You
I've done
know?
that. I have done that. And it takes so much longer to unknit a row than it does to knit it in the first place.
I know.
Hmm.
Fortunately, I caught myself there, but I could have been off and running in the wrong way.
Well, I am sorry for distracting you. I will
No,
accept
no,
all the responsibility for it.
no, I'm responsible for what I'm doing here. Oh, goodness.
I might have to switch to longer needles soon.
Mhm.
I think as soon as I ordered this kit, I went to my box of needles and said, what do I have in size 3 and size 5? Oh, good. Lots of lengths that aren't even being used.
Yeah. You know what my problem is now? This is a ridiculous problem to have, is I have so many projects that are unfinished, like we talked about before, that I have all sorts of needles and cable lengths all tied up that I could, that it's like, oh, I ran out of that length. I really could use that.
Yeah,
Right.
I have
Yeah.
a project I've been working on it, I think close to a year. It's a scarf for myself. Number one, that's a problem. Things for myself never take priority over things that I'm giving as gifts. Um, Number two, I think it's a lace weight or a very light fingering weight. And it's a very it's not an easy pattern. John, could you do me a favor and go get the fox colored scarf from the couch? My husband's sitting here. He's been carefully ignoring us because he's not that interested. Although he's been recently asking me some very intelligent questions as he watches me knitting um,
What
about
fun.
things like what makes the texture. And
Yeah.
I've offered to teach him how to knit, but he hasn't
He hasn't
taken
taken
me
you up
up
on
on
it.
it. Yeah, it seems what happened. So this is what I'm working on. And if you can see the pattern in that.
Let me
Um,
spotlight it here.
so it's a cable that goes in two different directions.
Oh, well, and
And
it's in a variegated, so it makes it look
yeah,
really
yeah.
lovely.
And the thing that's nice is that, so I'm going to stretch it out a little bit to see if you can see it better. But this kind of rusty red color is exactly the color of my good winter coat.
Oh, it's going to
And
be
I just like
beautiful.
I have to get the scarf finished before moths get at my coat.
You don't have a coat anymore. Oh dear. Well, is it a slow progress with all those cables? They
It
look so
is, yes.
small.
Yeah, it is. It's very small and it might be a size 3 or a size 2 needle.
Oh,
I
yeah,
forget.
Oh,
that
So
is.
wow.
so it's slow. Um, I made the same pattern for my son in a different color, but I misread the pattern because I was busy and stuff. So he only got the half of the cable, but it's just repeating the same half. But that's great because that means he and I have scarves that are not going to look the same at all
Oh,
between the
how
color and the
nice.
pattern.
How nice. Does he live near you?
He's in Quincy, Mass, which is maybe an hour away.
Uh-huh, that's not far.
Yeah. I don't see as much of him as I'd like because he's very busy. He recently
Yeah.
became managing partner of the architecture firm where he works.
Hmm.
Oh, lovely.
That's where my brother worked in Quincy as an architect.
Well, his office is in Boston, but they live in Quincy. Yeah.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I got my driver's license in Quincy a long time
Okay.
ago.
Yeah. Yeah, we're going north for a medical appointment for me on Tuesday, and I'm trying to figure out some place to find some unusual Oriental food ingredients and can't find them around here. And I said, it's a 6 minute difference to come home by way of Quincy rather than coming home the way we usually would. And there are three Oriental markets there. So let's think about doing that if it's not snowing or anything. But I don't think it's supposed to snow. A few days ago, they were forecasting snow for Tuesday, but I think that's changed. So I want to get something called gochugaru, which is a spice that you need to make kimchi because we don't have any good Korean restaurants here. And we had a very good one near where we used to live. So if we can't buy it, I'll just learn how to make it.
Mm-hmm. Well, we have recently been introduced and are now addicted to chili crisp.
I've read about that. I've never had it.
And I'm just, I am utterly addicted to it. And I, I, I found a recipe on the New York Times recipe app for fried rice that uses the chili crisp, and it is the best fried rice that I have ever made or eaten. And I don't really follow the recipe to a T. You know what I mean? I kind of just do whatever, different things that I have in the fridge now. I'm vegetarian, so I put in a lot of vegetables and tofu, and it's actually just a vegetarian recipe. Originally it was anyway, but anyway, that chili crisp just adds a layer of flavor and spice. I like a bit of spice. Anyway, that's my new Asian spice that I'm
Yeah. So what is chili crisp like? I've never read a really good description of it. I just know that it's like all the rage.
yeah, it's just a jar. I mean, they have lots of different kinds. It's just a jar, and it's got a bunch of kind of ground up chili. It's kind of all in little round, kind of, but then it's just oil and spice. So it's like kind of a reddish chili colored,
Okay.
reddish oily liquid that goes on the top, and then when you stir it up, it's got this more solid component that is the chilies and different spices all
Okay.
together. Yeah,
And is it like Oriental chilies?
it's Asian. Yeah, it's an Asian.
Okay.
um
So it sounds
I think
kind of
it's
like it.
Chinese.
Okay. It
Is it
sounds like it
what?
might be a Chinese equivalent to an Italian thing called Calabrian chilies. And you can get those either whole in oil or ground up in oil. They're very
Yeah.
hot, but they've got a really nice complex flavor. And I think they work really well. That works really well if you combine it with something like some mayonnaise or something to
Mm. Mhm.
Mm.
kind of tone it down just a little bit.
Yeah, it takes maybe for 6 cups of rice, and then maybe another 3 to 4 cups of vegetables and tofu and stuff. So quite a good amount. It only takes if you really like spice, you'd put in maybe 3 tablespoons. If you
Okay.
really wanted, but so like two tablespoons would probably be about right. It would give it a little bit of a kick, but without it being too much. So it's pretty potent, but it just adds, like you say, it just adds a complexity. It's more than just the heat. There's the spice component, which I love, but it's got so much more than that. And to be honest, I mean, there's a lot of stuff in it, and I really haven't looked. And part of the reason why I haven't looked is I suspect there might be fish sauce in it, and I'm a vegetarian, so I don't want to know.
Is it real hot?
Yeah,
That's
very
what it
hot.
sounds like.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh,
Yeah.
okay.
So I won't invite you to come for kimchi or any of the things that go with it because kimchi has to have fish sauce in it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I mean, you can make it without, but it just doesn't have the same flavor.
It's not right.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah. And we are not vegetarians, but we try to buy stuff that's local. And I used to be not so good about managing the food in the house, but now we are much better about, okay, we've made this, there's leftovers. What are we going to do with it? And actually using them because it's one thing if we've allowed salad greens to spoil or something like that, that goes in
Oh.
the compost, but the meat can't go in the compost. So
Mm-hmm.
if we're going to still eat meat, we need to be responsible about it.
Mm-hmm.
And if I'm type 2 diabetic, so I can't have a lot of carbs. I miss rice, I miss potatoes. I love those things. And so I haven't been able to figure out how to really give up the animal protein in a way that is healthy for me.
Hmm. Hmm. I understand.
And I love tofu, but even though it's got protein, it also has carbohydrates.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah, well, my sweetie is not a vegetarian, so he cooks, you know, salmon or chicken or maybe some pork or whatever. He'll cook his own thing and then he eats it with whatever I make, like if I make a pasta, he'll add it to that or a rice or what we eat a lot is like a quinoa lentil vegetable, you know,
mhm.
mixture. And some of those can be hot or some of them can be more like a salad served over romaine and then he just adds his protein on top of that.
Yeah,
And so it works pretty well. Well, at least it works pretty well for me. I know that he wishes I ate meat because, you know, I would
it
then
makes
do.
it makes life easier when you both are eating the same way.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
it is a little bit of a hassle, but it is what it is. So
yeah.
I don't expect him to be a vegetarian.
I remember one time we had my husband's almost his entire family came. That was his sister was and her husband were there delivering kids so that John's father and stepmother could pick them up to go spend some time with them. And our house was a halfway point. So in this group of people, we had three vegetarians, one person with lactose intolerance, one person with celiac disease, one who'd had a lot of cardiac issues and had to have low fat and low salt. And um,
Yeah, that has to
yeah,
be tough.
there
Yeah.
there was some other thing thrown in there too that I don't remember. But it was just like, what am I going to do? And I just said, okay, we grill some chicken. We have a big bowl of lettuce. We have a
Mhm.
bowl with some grated cheese. We have some bread. We have some rice salad. And people can put together
Mhm.
their own plates of food by mixing and matching the things that work for them.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, that's a good way to do it. I'm so glad we're sitting here doing this. I feel like I'm making some progress again.
Are you
Well,
all
it's nice
throwers
getting,
or do you do continental or are you a thrower?
Yeah,
I'm a
well,
thrower.
oh, I'm sorry. Who were you asking? I'm sorry.
Well, either of you, both of you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You're a
you would like,
thrower.
I'm a
yeah.
Yeah. I took a class one time and learned how to do continental, and I do it once in a while. But I think unless you're just doing straight knitting, I find it confusing to
Mhm.
Yeah, I
to
would
do
too.
cables and things like that. I am not that skilled at continental, even though it's faster once you get the hang of it.
Well, I have a bit of a complicated knitting journey, and that is I, up until a couple years ago, was a lifelong left-handed thrower.
Oh,
So I knit
oh,
left-handed and I threw. Um,
that would
but
be hard.
to Well, it was easy for me. My mom was left-handed and I'm ambidextrous, so it was no problem. That's
Mhm.
how I was taught and felt comfortable. And knitting right-handed felt very awkward. Throwing right-handed felt particularly awkward. Um, but a couple years ago, I just decided, if I'm going to hold these knit-alongs, I've got to learn how to demonstrate things right-handed. And so I started teaching myself how to knit continental. And I forced myself to just knit continental for like 2 years solid. And now I prefer it. right-handed continental, not left-handed, but right-handed continental.
Hmm.
And so I knit right-handed continental now, but then earlier this year I did the Fia pullover and started doing color work, and that, so I thought, oh, I'm gonna hold the yarn in both hands and knit. So I started throwing with my right hand, and that started feeling more and more comfortable. So I could probably throw with my right hand if I had to. I'd be a little bit slow, but I I find myself now that I will allow myself to knit left-handed, because I'm out of the learning phase of that year or two that it took me to feel totally comfortable knitting right-handed. Um, I can knit both directions, so I can knit across right-handed and knit back left-handed, knit across right-handed,
Oh,
knit across.
wow.
So that feels just as comfortable as anything.
That would save so much time with not having to, especially on a big project, to not have to turn it
Oh,
around and adjust it and stuff. Oh,